truly felt like it was me and my team against the world, because situations like that don't turn out where, David takes down Goliath. And, I just think me and my team, we had faith, and I went out there and executed the plan and won a national title. When we talk about the final boss, like, that is my boss of my boss of my boss. So, having him be there and support the great sport of wrestling and be able to watch me, have a historic moment like that, I mean, that's something I'll remember for the rest of my life. I've always been super patriotic, and I have a heart to serve.
Jesse, Trump seems to go where the good stuff is. It's like something good's happening. He shows up there. There's a vibe. And I'm trying to figure out, I was sitting around this today. Where do the Dems go to do something like that?
It's easy. They go to the WNBA games.
Oh, okay.
Or they could just go to March Madness. They could go to the men or the women. It's so easy. I could name a ton of events. Go to the Kentucky Derby. Go to a baseball game. It's not that complicated. At this point, Trump's like running out of events to go to, though. He's going to go to Ellie and Sophie's volleyball game next week. He's going to go to the Olympics in 4 years, and he's going to want to light the torch, Jessica. He's going to want to hold the torch in LA. You're just going to have to face it. Okay. It's going to happen. All the homeless are going to be cleared out of LA. They're going to be going to a mega prison somewhere. Canada's going to be competing with us under the Stars and Stripes. And I think the Palisades will probably be condos under the Trump banner. I don't know why Democrats don't go to games. I used to think they just didn't want to go, or they didn't know what the game was, but now I figured it out. There are a lot of women in Congress, and women don't usually like sports. And I'm stereotyping women here,
yes,
obviously. You are. And the men you guys elect act like women. Like Schiff, he doesn't want to go see sports. So until you guys vote for guys that like sports, you're not going to connect.
Well said, Jesse.
Was it?
A voice of a generation. Jessica, I couldn't help but notice two biological men wrestling. Not a woman claiming to be a man wrestling a woman. Is that why Dems can't watch it and are sickened by the sight of Americans triumphing? Is that a word?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now it is.
Now it is.
No.
Anyway, the question is there. Somewhere.
It's somewhere in there. The answer is the reason there were no biological men there were no trans people competing is there are only 10 trans NCAA athletes. So it's the smallest little group of people. But anyway, we've already already done this 80-20-ish.
Why did you bring it up?
Well, because the facts matter, or they used to. I don't know about this week. Obviously, this is working for him. And to go back to the David Shore data that we were talking about with Gen Zs, and it should be noted as well that Gen Z women are also shifting towards more conservative. One of the rationales, which I feel like has been under-discussed, is when you look at the parents. So as a millennial, I grew up with boomer parents who are one of the most overtly liberal generations, and Gen Xers are much more conservative. And so they were probably growing up in a household that had a more conservative influence. And they're also totally coming of age during the Trump era, which Obama wasn't really a thing for them. And so they didn't have that hope and change happening. Obviously, Hillary lost, and the Biden administration, it was 91% of people listed the cost of living as their number one issue in the data that David Shore shared. And Trump ended up winning on that. So it all kind of adds up.
Well, maybe in the future, keying cars will be a sport, and then all you Democrats can go and watch it. Dana, it is funny. The guy's nicknamed Captain America. He wins the championship. It almost feels like this stuff is scripted.
Well, and that's actually an interesting point. I hadn't thought about that. But when you said earlier, you're thinking about where Trump goes, he goes where he knows that people are going to be, but also where you can have fun.
Yeah.
And he's smiling, and it drives Democrats crazy that he's having a great time and inspiring a younger generation. I mean, that could last a while. This next generation that they were talking about in that data, all of them will be voters by the next election. And if they vote Republican, if you vote Republican twice or Democrat twice, you likely will do that for the rest of your life, unless there's some big realignment.
Interesting. Judge, it's also very authentic. I don't think, like, when Democrats go to places, they're pretending to be authentic, which is the opposite of authentic.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because I couldn't help but think, when I saw Donald Trump, being cheered at this NCAA wrestling championship game, that, Tim Walz was the one who said, talk about phony. He said, basically, I'm a tough guy and I can kick any of the Trump supporters' asses. That's a quote, folks. Okay. And that's just how phony the Democrats have to be to try to be a part of this. Donald Trump is naturally a sports person. He's been going to sporting events since I've known him for almost, 38 years now. This is what he loves, and they know it's authentic and they know it's real. And, when this guy Hendrickson, his second lieutenant in the Air Force, he wraps himself in the American flag. He salutes Donald Trump. They're cheering USA. I mean, this is so patriotic. This man has brought patriotism back to this country. And, coming out of the Biden administration, where this cognitively declined president is always checking his watch as the coffins are coming in, or where we leave Afghanistan, and, we have to leave some Americans there, but, they really wanted to stay. And we leave all of the weapons for the Taliban. I mean, this is a man who is the ultimate fighter. He has the credibility, and he has done everything to support the sports, and they love him, and they will continue to love him.
All right, they're going to love him. Brings me back to my wrestling days back in the Olympics. Those were good times. I got a silver. I don't like to talk about it. Coming up, Tampon Tim admits he has an unhealthy obsession with Elon Musk.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.
Well, there was a wild crowd cheering for President Trump at the NCAA's men's wrestling match in Deep Blue, Philly. That was on Saturday.
So one major highlight, Penn State's Carter Starocci making history as the first ever five-time national champ and making a beeline straight for the president to share the epic historic moment and his trophy.
Yep, joining us right now is that man. Carter Starocci joins us now. Carter, congratulations. What was it like to win that match, and when did you realize you were going to go over to the president?
When I heard he was coming, I kind of figured I was going to go over there and say a few words to my man, because I met him before, so having him in the house is always special, so I had to go make sure that I appreciated his presence.
What was the energy? I mean, listen, this is a big deal for the wrestlers, and I don't want to take away from the wrestlers who are there, and I know you're doing your job there and you're focused on your match, but there was an energy that we could feel here watching the president walk into that arena. What was that like?
I mean, it was awesome. So for us, maybe it wasn't as great because that was the first match. And so when I was warming up, they were saying, hey, when he walks in the building, we're going to shut everything down. So I was like, oh, well, I better get warmed up now then. And so, but just having his presence and everything like that, I was in the tunnel and I kind of saw him back there. And I was like, wow, these guys are here.
So, Carter, I love how you refer to the president. You said, it was good to see my man, just the personality. How was it when you finally did get to talk to the president after your big win? What was the conversation like between you two?
Yeah, I just told him, I was like, hey, I hope you enjoyed the show. He was like, I did. You're one of my favorite wrestlers to watch in the world. I love your tenacity. I love your interviews. And then I told him I appreciated his persona as well. And then I told him the story too. I was like, hey, when I was warming up, they kind of made it a little hard for me because you're the big dog. And he laughed. And then he gave me like a nice coin to recognize me.
Five-time champ. It'll probably never happen again with the pandemic aberration. So what's next for you, Carter?
Right now, just kind of enjoying this moment. One thing our coach always tells us is to never inhale on things like this. You know, obviously we're on Fox News and talking about it, but this is just another stepping stone for me in the program. And so for me, just never inhale on these kind of things and just keep looking forward to the next thing. So right now, just kind of enjoying this moment with my family and friends, and I'll have a meeting with the coaches. But for me, I plan on winning the Olympics in 2028 in our home country.
And maybe UFC?
And the UFC as well, yes.
Real quickly, Carter, where does your mentality come from?
I don't know. I mean, as my walkout song, it's Michael Myers. And so when I was growing up, my dad kind of always had those movies going on. So for me, I just always really enjoy that stuff. And when those lights turn on, I turn that switch on. And so for me, it's I see red, and whoever's out in front of me, there's just no remorse.
All right, it's time to
There's
go visit
no
the White
remorse.
House and visit your man because he provided inspiration.
Proud of you,
thanks so
Carter.
much.
Thank you.
All right, there he is, 5-time champ.
A historic moment in college wrestling. Pulled off by a man they call Captain America, Air Force Second Lieutenant Wyatt Hendrickson, repping Oklahoma State, taking down 3-time college national champ and also an Olympic gold medalist. Final seconds of a very intense match at the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia in front of the Commander-in-Chief. What a stage.
Captain America. Rock. On the floor. Shut up, Rock. I'm glad that he was the last match.
Good. The newly crowned NCAA champ is Wyatt Hendrickson. He's with me now. Wyatt, congratulations. How you feeling back in Stillwater today?
Yeah, good morning. The sun came up bright as it could be. I'm glad to be back in Oklahoma. Philadelphia is a little bit different environment, but it's good to be home.
Okay, so you're in front of the Commander-in-Chief, right? You said this was Gable Steveson is the guy, right? And someone said
Yes.
This was the biggest upset in the history of the NCAA in wrestling. You guys are 285 pounds going at it in front of the president. You said you were David and he was Goliath. How come?
The sermon this Sunday, that's just what we talked about. And I think the biggest thing I took away from that was you have to have a vision of victory, because in situations like that, the odds are against you. People were looking at that match saying, there's a 0% chance Wyatt's going to win this. This isn't even a question. This match is already done. It's already spoken for. And so I didn't believe into that. I didn't give into that. When I went out there, I truly felt like it was me and my team against the world, because situations like that don't turn out where, David takes down Goliath. And, I just think me and my team, we had faith, and I went out there and executed the plan and won a national title.
What happened the last 30 seconds of that match that you felt?
So I knew that it was going to take something special, and I only was going to have one chance. We talk about wrestling a full match, and the strategy of that was it was going to take, kind of like a Hail Mary or everything I got. And so I knew as soon as I got to that leg, there was no backing down. So I was fully dedicated. That shot, I think I went around the mat maybe 2 times. I was putting every single thing I had into that and more. So, it was just the plan was well executed, and I got that takedown and was able to hold him down for those last 15 seconds. I felt the power of him just get taken away.
Yeah, you felt the power, right? I hear you saying that. This is Senator Mark Wayne Mullen. He was in the first row. A lot of folks, including the president. Listen here.
President Trump met him 3 years ago, and Wyatt walked up to him when I was with him and said, "Can I get a waiver to fly jets?" And the president looked at him and said, "Sir, I don't think they make cockpits that big. I mean, you're just a huge individual." And they actually developed a friendship. And so President Trump was supposed to leave 2 matches before Wyatt wrestled. And he said, he looked at me and he says, "I can't leave. I got to watch my big guy." That's what he called him. He said, "I got to watch my big guy."
What's that mean to you?
That's pretty special. I gotta be very honest with you. That is very special. When we talk about the final boss, that is my boss of my boss of my boss. So, having him be there and support the great sport of wrestling and be able to watch me, have a historic moment like that, I mean, that's something I'll remember for the rest of my life.
Amazing. You're in the Air Force. I don't know why you chose the Air Force, because you are. You're a big dude. But you're going to serve another 20 years in the Air Force. Tell me what that means to you, to serve your country.
Absolutely. When I was looking at wrestling in college, I wanted to look at more than just that, what my career is going to look like. And I kind of realized I've always been super patriotic and I have a heart to serve. And so, the Air Force Academy was a pretty easy pick for me. And, because of the Air Force, I'm able to be at grad school, wrestling at Oklahoma State University. So, the opportunities in the Air Force are just limitless. And so this is just part of the stepping stone. I'll be able to wrestle for a couple of years, and then I'll be able to transition into my job and, be able to serve this great country to the best of my ability.
I dig it. Well done. They're lucky to have you. Wyatt, congratulations. I mean, this is like the March Madness, right? Watching
Yes.
you in Philadelphia. Congrats, well done, and thanks for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you
There he
guys.
is. Captain America, Wyatt Hendrickson.
Yeah,
Back home.
Great interview, and what a great young man. And these
good man.
college athletes,
Yeah.
he can inspire you and make you feel good about
stepping
this.
up.
On a Monday, he brought sunshine to our morning.
Well done, Wyatt.
President Trump greeted with the sound of cheers and USA chants on Saturday as he arrived for the NCAA Men's Wrestling Championship in Philadelphia. But before his raucous welcome, the president sat down with Outkick's Clay Travis on Air Force One to discuss the status of his second term.
NFL players, John Jones at the UFC, I know he brought the belt over. Christian Pulisic, great soccer player. They all do the dance that you made famous. Football players everywhere. College, it's everywhere. What does that reflect about the culture changing in the time that you've been president? Does it feel different to you?
We had a great opening month. We had a great second month. Now it's 2 months already, and the second month was equally as good to the first. And I'd like to see if we could stop the soldiers being killed, even though they're not American soldiers. Although it could, a thing like that could lead to World War III, in fairness. But I think it's somewhat under control. I had a good relationship with President Bush and actually a good relationship with President Zelensky. It'd be a great thing to be able to stop it. And I will say this, nobody else would have been able to.
And Outkick founder and co-host of the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show joins me now. Pretty cool experience there, Clay. Rode on Air Force One to the NCAA Wrestling Championships with the President of the United States.
Yeah, Will, thanks for having me, and obviously thanks to Caroline Levitt for putting the new media seat in place, which I do think is going to be helpful in the president being able to get his message out there. But I think it's clear that we have seen a major culture shift, and you heard the president and I talking about it there. I mean, Will, think about it. Super Bowl. They booed Santa Claus, Eagle fans did. They cheered Donald Trump in New Orleans. At the Daytona 500, he was on the beast driving around the track. Went crazy, that crowd, NASCAR did. And now, as you see on the screen, I got to tell you, I was sitting right there on the front row with the president. If you keep the tape running, they put a green face on me. Like, I don't know, it wasn't a good spot with the angle there. But I shook his hand. It was an electric environment as everybody is coming undone as he walks out in there. And I think this is reflective of, there I am right there. I think this is reflective of the overall sports fan in America, men in particular, but also a lot of women being aligned with Donald Trump for what I believe is a common sense revolution that he's leading right now.
And it wasn't just the crowd. We saw the incredible matches, many of the champions, the winners coming over to shake hands with President Trump. The Air Force, huge upset at the end, the Air Force cadet veteran, I believe, signaling the president and coming over and shaking his hand as well. I mean, there was just a lot of interaction between the participants, the crowd, and Donald Trump.
Yeah, Wyatt Hendrickson's win was phenomenal, but what I stood out, and I didn't see it get covered a tremendous amount, but you can see it there, the interaction that Trump had. Every single champion wrestler that I saw, Will, came over and shook the president's hand after they received their medals, their commendations, wanted a picture taken with him. Some of them even had him autograph their NCAA championships. The data coming out, 18-year-old men are more likely than 75-year-old men to be voting for Donald Trump in the 2024 election. I think that's why you're seeing a panic from the Democrat side of the equation, because the culture shift is real, and Trump has a real connection with younger male voters, but also a lot of younger female voters who are just tired of being told America's a bad place. They agree with him. It's an amazing place. Let's make it better.
I want to go back to the plane ride for a minute, Clay. You did get to have a sit-down interview with Donald Trump while you guys were together on Air Force One. And, and I'm glad you asked him this, but you asked him about JFK. You asked him, what are you supposed to take at the end of an 80,000-page release? Who killed John F. Kennedy? Here's what he had to say.
Do you think Oswald killed JFK personally?
I do, and I've always held that.
Yeah.
Of course, was he helped? I think the papers have turned out to be somewhat unspectacular.
Yeah, I think that's true.
All right, and maybe that's a good thing.
You know what I noticed about that answer, Clay? And you can really see it in the transcription. He says, I've always thought it was Lee Harvey Oswald, but he was, and then he stops himself and goes, was he helped? And turns it into a question, you know? I mean, he's definitely headed down the path of telling you Lee Harvey Oswald was helped. The question then being by who?
Yeah, look, and the reality is, Will, we are so lucky as an American country today that 1/4 inch that bullet passed and clipped President Trump's ear, because otherwise 100 years from now, people would still be saying, yeah, I don't think that one random guy in Butler, Pennsylvania acted alone. We don't like the idea that any one person relatively inconsequential like Lee Harvey Oswald or that crazy man in Pennsylvania, I don't even remember his name anymore, thankfully, but he would have become infamous if he had not missed that shot. And President Trump said in response to that he now trusts the FBI. I think the fact that he's got Kash Patel in charge is super important. But he's built different, Will. The day after he got clipped in the ear, I was talking to some of his friends at Bedminster on Saturday. He was out chipping golf balls. I asked him about in the interview. He said, well, what else are you going to do? The fact that he's doing these public events, we walked into that arena, that he doesn't have any PTSD after someone twice tried to kill him, I think is just a testament to why he connects so well with young men.
And you see it once again at the NCAA Wrestling Championships, as you've seen it in event after event. You can hear that whole interview, by the way. It's at the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show. Clay, thanks for jumping on with us today and telling us about your experience there with the president.
It was awesome. Thanks to everybody who was I got to meet with, and it was an incredible experience.
All right, take care, Clay.
I know wrestling is a big part of your background. I don't know if you know, but we had Wyatt Hendrickson on last hour.
Yeah.
He was David going after Goliath. I just want you to listen to this.
Was.
Yeah, watch here.
Very special. You know, when we talk about the final boss, like that is my boss of my boss of my boss. So, you know, having him be there and support the great sport of wrestling and be able to watch me, you know, have a historic moment like that, I mean, that's something I'll remember for the rest of my life.
So keep in mind, he beat the #2 seed. He beat the #1 seed as a former Olympic gold medal winner.
Yeah.
And I think 4 years ago, that #1 seed whooped him. I mean, just like he was so far ahead that they called the match. Now, you were there in Philly, Wells Fargo Arena. What was the moment like?
No, it was, well, first of all, President just walking in the arena, the whole place went crazy because wrestling people are working class, middle class people. They love the president. They love his athlete's mindset, his winning attitude. So he got a great reception. But that match was unbelievable. Maybe the greatest match in NCAA wrestling history, knocking off the Olympic champion. So it's really special. And I told the president yesterday, I called him to thank him again for coming. And I said, Wyatt Hendrickson doesn't win that match in my judgment if you're not there. Because having his commander-in-chief, the commander-in-chief there, as he said, was so special. What he did was truly amazing. One of those special moments in college sports.
You saw it.
A lot of fun.
And we heard about it. Thank you, sir. Nice to see you. Jim Jordan, hearings go down next week. Thank you for your time, sir. We will be in contact on that. Dana.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.